Discipline is not something you are born with. It is not reserved for a special group of people with extraordinary willpower. It is not a personality trait gifted to a lucky few. Discipline is a system, a structure of habits, decisions, and standards that anyone can build. And when that system is built correctly, it becomes unbreakable. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about intensity, about sudden bursts of motivation, about pushing hard for a short period of time. But motivation is unreliable. It comes when things are easy, when you feel inspired, when everything seems aligned. And it disappears the moment things become difficult. That is why so many people start strong and then fall off. They were relying on something temporary. Unbreakable discipline is different. It does not depend on how you feel. It does not wait for the perfect moment. It is built on a system that carries you forward, even when you are tired, even when you are bored, even when you feel like quitting. That is the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck. One group relies on feelings. The other relies on systems. The first step in building this system is making a clear and firm decision. Not a weak intention, not a vague hope, a decision, a moment where you draw a line and say, I will no longer live based on excuses. This decision is powerful because it changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. And once that shift happens, your actions begin to follow. But a decision alone is not enough. You must support it with clarity. You need to know exactly what you are working toward and why it matters. Without a clear purpose, discipline fades quickly. When things get hard, and they will, you need a reason strong enough to keep you moving. Your purpose is that reason. It connects your daily actions to a bigger vision. It reminds you that what you're doing today is building something meaningful for tomorrow. Once your purpose is clear, the next step is structure. This is where most people fail. They expect themselves to be disciplined in chaos. They wake up without a plan, make decisions on the spot, and then wonder why they struggle to stay consistent. Discipline cannot thrive in uncertainty. It needs structure. Structure means creating routines that guide your day. It means deciding in advance what you will do and when you will do it. It means reducing the number of decisions you have to make so you don't waste energy debating with yourself. When your day is structured, you don't ask, do I feel like doing this? You simply follow the plan. Over time, this removes resistance and makes discipline automatic. Habits are the building blocks of that structure. Every habit you create is a small piece of your system, and the more habits you build, the stronger your system becomes. The key is to start small and stay consistent. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. In fact, trying to do too much at once often leads to failure. Instead, focus on simple, repeatable actions. Actions you can commit to every single day. Consistency is what transforms discipline from something fragile into something unbreakable. Anyone can be disciplined for a day. Some can manage it for a week. But true discipline is measured over months and years. It is built in the moments when you don't feel like showing up. It is built when no one is watching, when there is no reward, when progress feels slow. These are the moments that define you because every time you show up despite resistance, you strengthen your system. You prove to yourself that you can be trusted, and that trust is powerful. It creates confidence, not the kind that comes from success, but the kind that comes from knowing you will do what you said you would do. But let's be clear, this process is not comfortable. In fact, it is often uncomfortable, repetitive, and even boring. That is something most people try to avoid. They chase excitement, they look for shortcuts, they want discipline to feel good all the time. But that is not how it works. Unbreakable discipline requires you to embrace discomfort. It requires you to do the hard things, the boring things, the things that don't bring immediate results. It requires you to act when your mind is full of excuses, and it requires you to keep going even when progress is invisible. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Every time you face it instead of avoiding it, you grow stronger. You expand your limits. You increase your tolerance for difficulty. And over time, Things that once felt hard become, and that responsibility gives you power, because once you accept that your results come from your actions, you realize that you have the ability to change them. Accountability also builds self-respect. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you strengthen your identity as a disciplined person. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken that identity. That is why it's so important to keep your word, not just to others, but to yourself. Of course, no system is perfect. There will be days when you fail, days when you lose focus, skip your routine, or fall short of your standards. That is part of the process. What matters is how you respond. Most people let failure stop them. They miss one day and turn it into a week. They make a mistake and use it as an excuse to quit. But unbreakable discipline is not about never failing. It is about never staying down. When you fail, you don't overthink it. You don't make it bigger than it is. You reset and continue. You return to your system, because the power of discipline is not in perfection. It is in persistence. Think of your system like a foundation. Every action you take adds another layer. Some days you build quickly. Other days progress is slow. But as long as you keep building, the foundation grows stronger. And once it becomes strong enough, it can withstand anything: distractions, setbacks, challenges, and even your own doubts. Over time, something remarkable happens. Discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes part of who you are. You no longer rely on external motivation. You don't need to convince yourself to take action. You simply do what needs to be done. That is the ultimate goal. Not just to practice discipline, but to become disciplined. So if you want to build unbreakable discipline, stop looking for shortcuts. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop relying on motivation. Instead, focus on building your system. Make a clear decision. Define your purpose. Create structure. Build small habits. Stay consistent. Embrace discomfort. Hold yourself accountable, and when you fail, get back up and continue. Because at the end of the day, discipline is not about doing something extraordinary once. It is about doing the ordinary things every single day without fail. And when you commit to that process, when you build a system that supports you, guides you, and pushes you forward, you become unstoppable. That is the power of unbreakable discipline.